just going to say I'm Lissa Magel. I want to welcome our viewers to the 2020 DFW Solar Tour. It's the 11th annual local tour. We're the North Texas Renewable Energy Group, and we're the local chapter of the Texas Solar Energy Society. Of course, this is the first time we've done a virtual tour, so please bear with me if I have any technical issues. I wanted to thank our sponsors, especially our Terawatt sponsor, Dallas College. And I want to thank our host here today, Jim Cochran, and all the other owners of the houses on the tour and the sites. And I want to thank the folks who are attending today, because it's actually a fairly nice day. So thanks for taking some time out to learn about solar and sustainability. This session will be half an hour. It goes till 11 a.m. I guess we have a small group, so we don't necessarily need to worry about muting microphones unless you think you have a lot of background noise. And to ask a question, again, because we got a small group, I think we can probably just speak up, or you can always put something in the chat box if you want. And I do want to point out that this meeting is being recorded. So just so you know, and so I'm going to hand the meeting off to our homeowner, Jim Cochran, so he can brag about his shiny new solar system.
Well, I would say it's been a learning experience. It's kind of been fun. And I think of it kind of like buying as you get older, you know, you buy a sports car or something. And I kind of look at it that way, as much as saving money, though. I have to admit, you know, when I had the whole thing came about when I had a storm and 2 trees came down and several limbs on the live oaks came down, and one of the trees came smashing to the roof. And so, you know, needless to say, I had to put a whole new roof on. So at the time I thought, well, okay, what about solar energy? You know, it's just, to me, it was kind of a dream to put it on there. And so I got discussing around and I thought, well, let's just get some quotes and just see what it was. And it was interesting because the different quotes, you know, came in and they were all about saving money, and here's what you can put on. You get a return of 10, 15 years. And I was a little bit kind of dubious of a lot of them, because some of them they were taking, at the time I was paying 17 cents a kilowatt hour, which mainly because I was just stupid enough not to like go and look and see what I could get for a better deal. So I said, well, that's coming off 17 cents, you know, my return and all this stuff. Well, I just kept researching a little bit, and it's a fluke how basically I found who became my installer. And I joined the North Texas Energy Renewables Group, and I ran into Mo, who was basically the owner of the Good Faith Energy installer for solar panels. And we got talking, and he heard me talking, called me out in the parking lot, and we started discussing some more. Well, before long, I had them come out and kind of do a quote with me. And they kind of sat down with a little bit more through it with me, because a lot of people do the quote. Basically, when you do those, you kind of go online and put in your address. They look at it from the Google perspective. They look at your little house and trees and say, oh yeah, this will do to save you here, or this might work this. But they never really actually come out on your site to kind of look at it. And I knew from the time that what looked on Google was a lot different with the trees being down from the storm. And some of them even said, well, okay, we'll come out to your site after you kind of sign a contract. And I said, well, that's not going to happen. So needless to say, I was skeptical of a lot of them, except, you know, I had a good feeling about the Good Faith Energy crowd. And so we sat down and I went through some issues. Here's what I wanted to have. And I did some research on kind of what are they, you know, what panels, what are they like? Do you have the string converters, micro inverters, you know, which one's the best to use? And I actually had another quote where the guy came, and he did come out on site and look at stuff. He gave me a quote, came back, and he finally came back and said, well, my engineer says that with some of the shading that it's just not going to work. So, you know, we really can't sell it to you, which I was kind of dumbfounded, because I thought most times salesmen want to sell it to you when it doesn't work. They don't care, get their money. So needless to say, after the quotes, I kind of kept working with Good Faith, and I said, well, here's kind of what I need. I think I need about 18 panels. I went back and did my research over what I'd done from years past and how much energy I was using and needing. And I came up, and they came out with about, say, between 16 and 20 panels. They came with 18. I said, well, let's make it 20, just add 2 more. Because even after we went further along, I said, I just want to just cover for what I thought would be the shady time in the early morning and the evening. Because I have 2 trees on both sides of the house that are fairly tall. And I knew that I would only get not a full day, but most of the day. And of course, I'd also ran across a term called what's peak hours. And And every state has a number of peak hours. And basically, that's the time in which you get the optimal sun. In the sense that the sun is either a direction coming almost down to the house on each side. It's like a kind of like inverted pyramid. And that's the period where you'll probably get the majority of your sun. And with the trees, even on the side, I'm still getting a good part of that peak hour. So I found out that pretty much I've covered my energy needs, though I will admit that I've kind of sat down and kind of looked to see what I'm using in the house and what's efficient, what's not efficient. And I had some insulation put into it at the same time when I had the system installed. So I've actually not only covered my needs, I've kind of exceeded that point that I have like a credit on my bill now, because I had changed to, Reliant and Green Mountain or some that do what's called net metering. They give you a 1-for-1, because essentially when I put the panels on, I became part of the overall grid. I am part of the Texas grid. So I pretty much give them all my electricity. I use it when I'm not generating it. They give me a credit back. And in the end, the idea is to be that you match up and just you keep the difference comes out to zero at the end of the year. Well, what I'm finding is,
So,
go ahead.
Jim, you went with Green Mountain. Was there any big difference between any of like the other REPs that offered a sort of a net metering program?
The only two I knew of were Reliant, which is what I was on at the time. They had a net metering, and I didn't really investigate them too much. They've probably been the same thing as Green Mountain. I just figured I went ahead and switched over to Green Mountain before him, because then the way I thought, well, I can feel good about getting.
Yeah.
And I told people, said, well, contracts, when they come out to do a contract, they'll always emphasize how much you can save on this. Well, you can save. The buyback is about 15 years to get your money back. So I was thinking part of it is to save money, and part of it is just, I wanted to get involved with it. So I went ahead and switched just to Green Mountain Energy, go to another company. They gave me 13 cents a kilowatt hour. So that was down from 17 cents I was paying. And that's like a flat amount, because sometimes a lot of these companies, even if you're not even doing solar, they'll have, we'll charge you 5 cents, but that's if you use so much energy, then there's a fee. And by the time you do the math on that, sometimes it's easier or the same price if you just have a straight amount charge. So it's 13 cents kilowatt hour. That's what I switched over with them. So I had already switched over to Green Mountain Energy probably about 2 or 3 months even before the panels had gone on, and that's after I signed the contract. I knew I was moving that direction. So,
How did you decide to pay for the panels? Did you?
That was out of pocket for me. I mean, I financed it all up front for a couple of reasons. I didn't want to have to really go through a bank and get a loan and get all of that, which I could have done. And I really wanted to get the credit, because last year in 19, they had a 30% credit. And then this year it's a 26, and then I think 22, and it drops off to zero. Now, what the credit does is that's basically a credit right off my tax. That's not a deduction. So let's say you buy a system for $20,000, you take 6% of that, and that's that's like several thousands of dollars that you take right off your tax. And since I don't have any other deductions, and kind of everything's paid for and so forth, I wanted something. Now, I actually also needed to do a couple more things. I needed to upgrade my circuit breaker box, which is 40 amp. It's for 50 years. I need to go to a 200 box. And of course, then that has to be put on the outside of the house now to do it. So that was part of the package. I said, also, let's insulate the roof, throw that in. So I kind of upped the price of this package, but at the same time, this contract will come right off, as a deduction off my taxes.
Did the same solar installer do the insulation on your roof, or did you have to find somebody else?
They did everything. Now,
okay.
In fact, to say that there's also several processes involved here, which was one good thing that Good Faith Energy did. And I kind of tracked them all the way. I was kind of on their case about, okay, what about, this and this? Because once you do that, you have to get certain permits too. You have to get a permit from the city, and you have to work with Encore, because then they have to give you a kind of permit. And I knew when I started doing the quotes, this was like September, October, I thought in 2 months, you have to be operational in order for it to come out and you get the quote for that year. And I thought that's really pushing it. So I said, well, let's just kick it off to next year. The idea to go live in 2020. That way we have plenty of time to make some adjustments if we need to. And also I knew at that point in 2020, I could get a credit from Encore. They were giving a particular rebate, and it was several $1,000s. It was well worthwhile to do it. So even though I went to 30% down to 26% of the credit for the federal income tax, I did get a rebate from Encore. And Good Faith they did all of that. They took care of all the permits from the city. They took care of everything that Encore had come out, and they had approved it, set it up, and so forth. So it all went really smooth. You know, we set up
Okay.
time, and so in like the middle of February, they came out, and of course, I had a new roof, and you know, you have to drill to the roof to get to put the panels on. And I was like, oh, that really like, because so, but you know, the bill, my electric bill's been pretty good this year now. We've had a little more rain, not so hot, but we had some pretty hot days, but rarely have I had to use the credit during the summer. So you might say I oversized the system. And another way to look at it is I can use more electricity if I want to, but
Right.
I'm one person with one cat, you know, and as opposed to other people who, you know, have kids and but I still have a lot of electronic equipment, but I'm more cautious about running TVs and stuff like that when I'm not using so forth. But it's worked out pretty well so far. So,
So how long did the actual installation itself take? Was that one day or more than one?
it took about 2 days because I had to cut all the power off of the house to move the electrical box to the outside. Because anytime you change your circuit breaker box these days, it has to be either in the garage or it has to be on the outside of the house. So, and I moved that to the outside of the house because it was inside a closet. And the idea is that they don't put it in a closet anymore because it might, if it explodes, catches fire. So we moved that right from the closet, right, just switched it around to the outside of the house. And on the outside of the house is also basically, you'll see the Envoy, the part that goes up to the solar panels, and then the smart meter all together. Plus the circuit breaker, you know, box, I actually put a lock on it too, because I was thinking, well, this is outside, so we could just pop that open and cut my power. So.
Now, can you see those?
Yeah, and if you look, I guess on the right, I don't know if it's close, but on the right, you can see what behind that tree, there's where the boxes are on the outside of the house. And now, yes, I had that. Now this is that's a good picture. You see if you look at here, the first box that's open, that's where the solar metering was, the Envoy that measures what's coming in from the panels. Cause I have micro inverters and everything. I went to them and said, I want micro inverters so I can see all the panels. If there's any problem with the panels, you know, the micro inverter will tell you which one, and if you want to add a panel, it makes a difference too. So then next to that one is just, there's a switch box, as a power box, and that's where it has a switch where you can turn on and off the solar panels. It's a smaller one. And then from there runs to my circuit breaker box, which is a large one. And that one, now I put a lock on that one. So, because, you know, if somebody wanted to turn my power off, they could just open it up, switch the power. So I guess they could cut the lock off if they really wanted to do that. And actually you could put a lock on the Envoy box over there too. So it's this little thing to lock that up as well. Of course, it's on the outside of the house at the middle of the night when it's dark, you know. However, now if that picture there too, see the meter up there at the top, that is actually, you know, ironically, I think that's an older picture there, but I won't, because that box is dropped down. That box is dropped down and so forth. They came out and installed me a whole new smart meter too, as well. I didn't even notice that till you showed that picture. That must have been an earlier picture, because that smart meter is just a little bit lower. It's next to that AT&T box on the left there, about that size. But the smart meter was put in a long time ago, and it's anyone who has a smart meter can sign in. They can see what's going on in the house, and it'll track every 15 minutes. It tracks what you're generating, and it tracks what's being produced and what you're getting from Encore. So I have to say that smart meter is kind of nice. I can go in there and I can see in 50 area, I can see what's going on with the air conditioning. And sometimes it's funny because I can go back and look at it and I think, I wasn't home that day during that time. Why is that power? I'm like, oh, Marco's there taking care of the house. I bet he's doing laundry, brought all his stuff over there. He's running laundry. No wonder. So this is a good representation. If you look at the little graph on the left, that's Encore gives me that. And you see basically, this is the blue is sort of what I'm generating and the brown is what I'm using. So you can see early in the morning, I start generating electricity, it goes up. And you know, that's basically, if you have a perfect day, if there's such a thing, you'll get a bell curve. You won't get this jagged edge. But those jagged edges basically are like it gets cloudy. See, you know, go back up. That's the same thing there. If you see, go back down to the one that's there where it had the graphs.
Oh, the bar graph?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at that, that's what comes from the Envoy itself in terms of what I'm generating. And that's the full generation amount, that 26 kilowatt hours. However, your net meter, it probably will say 19 kilowatt hours because basically during the day, my house is using the power off my panels, and what it has excess, it's sending and then back to Encore. And so that's what when I started doing the math, I thought, guys, okay, so the difference between the 26 there and what Encore registers is how much energy I used during the day while the panels were going. It's first with the pandemic, and I've been home working every day with computers going, and I thought that might make a big difference. It's just the air conditioning that I found makes a big difference. So you now see, if you look at 26 with the day with some cloudiness, the day before 35 to 38, 39, that's pretty much summer time, and that's about the same I get. It's a bit lower in the winter time in terms of because the days are shorter. But if I'm averaging 35 an hour, then kilowatts per day, that's keeping me pretty much even. So
Let's see. So, one question that sometimes comes up, but does your insurance company, did you tell them the value of your system? Did they know what you were talking about?
Yeah, they took care. Now, there's an interesting thing on that, because when my trees tore up the roof, the insurance company came in and put a whole new roof on, which was nice. And they put these new type force shingles on, and my premium went down by several $100s. I thought that was just like, okay, you paid for a new roof. And it went down, I think it went down like about $500 or $700, about $500. And I thought, oh, that's good. Of course, I said, I'm putting solar panels on there. So they insured those. It was about $200 a month. So, or that's my homeowner, I should say $200 of my homeowner's insurance, not per month. So it was a little bit more, but not that bad.
Okay. But they were familiar with the concept of solar, which, 10 years ago, they might not have been.
No, true. And it wasn't Brian said, put solar panels on here. So they came up with a quote, and it wasn't that bad. And actually the difference, because I had the new roof on with the type panels, because they were so much better than it, I'm still cheaper than I was before that. So maybe I'm just lucky.
Okay. Let's see. So I know you've got some other figures here. Did you want to talk about like the normal day stuff? Here's one.
Well, a normal day.
Oh, that's smart meter. I'm sorry. I hit the wrong one.
Yeah, normal day, I guess it's, summer and winter is a little different. I guess if I don't use the air conditioner unit, the air conditioner like it triples the amount of energy I use during the day. So I see several things coming on the chat. So you might catch those, you'll see.
Sorry, I forgot to look at the chat.
I think usually for me, a normal day is about 10 to 15 kilowatt hours a day. I'm generating on a good day, 30 to 38, it's cloudy and rainy, maybe 5 to 10.
Okay.
So it is averaging out. Now, winter, summer, the days are a little bit longer definitely in summer. So you get more peak hours than you do in the winter, and the sun's a little bit more direct. But I sort of kind of figured I would have this credit. Because now the chart shows, you see the bell curve going up. That's a September 29th. That's during the middle of the day. And I can chart basically, I guess my peak hours run from about 11 until about 4. And
okay. Well, so here's some of the questions that I finally saw. Sorry about that. It says, can you speak to the ease of the permitting process, how long it took, pre-installation and post-installation issues? Did you have any problems with code enforcement?
No, and I guess the good thing is that Good Faith Energy took care of all of that. They had to have Encore come back out. Then the city had to get a permit with the city, and then I had to post it on my window. So they come back and check it out. I had no problem with that whatsoever, but that's part of their process. And I was on their case about like, okay, do you have this permit? Do you have this, that? And they took care of it for the most part altogether. So they scheduled a time when they, with the panels, ordered the panels that came in, and it was in February, we scheduled a date to come out, put them up. And I said, well, it's going to take a day to move the power to the outside of the house. And that took a day. And then the next day they came in and they put the panels on. It all happened in one day. And there was a little bit of follow-up after that too. And but that was pretty smooth. But there's 2 or 3 things you have to jump through in terms of the city getting an inspection like that. But I did not have any problem with it. And part of that is just, that my installer took care of that for me.
Okay. So the next question is from Michael Fladmark, is What resources did you use to learn about solar before you went out to installers with the system you wanted? Or was this the system the selected installer designed for you?
I just went to Google and started doing research on what are solar panels and how do they connected, and just try to familiar myself with the vocabulary altogether. And then I went talking to certain people about, well, what do you have set up for your system, and what do you do? It was just research by hand, because I first had to get familiar with the whole vocabulary. When people were talking about string inverters, micro, inverters, I had no clue what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And plus I had to do that because I wanted to kind of size the system myself, because I knew some of the quotes that came to me I thought were a little bit undersized and a little bit optimistic. Well, I thought those don't give me enough to break even, and the return investment at 10 years, like, no. So I know from experience, when you're doing a bathroom, changing bathroom, doing something, you might as well double the amount of time it is, and sometimes there's just all those other costs that go with it. And the thing about it is too, sometimes you'll find as you get partway through a project, you'll think of something different you want to do. And I did, in terms I got through, I said, oh, I want you to make the system now so I can add a battery to it, so I don't have to come back and have you redo it to add a battery. Put it on there now, so that if I decide this year or next year to add a battery, it won't be so difficult. So that was some things I did there different.
So one comment, I guess, that was related to the insurance thing is a comment that says, we insured our system when we installed it 10 years ago, and the insurance premium was only about $40 a year. So just a comment. So anyway.
Well, I never know the insurance companies, because you ever change every few years. Mine's been pretty good. Of course, when they replaced my roof, and then I had a pipe in my kitchen, just a few months ago exploded, and I had to redo the kitchen. I thought, well, I only know what, they're going to do, but they haven't really raised it too much. But it's like anything, you have to kind of shop around a little bit and so forth. But I think today having solar panels on the roof is not necessarily as a new option. I was hoping to be the first one in my neighborhood out here. In my association, we have solar panels. I was like a big rooster. I'm going to be first. And I found out 2 more people already had it. I thought, okay. So,
that's okay. You can get together and have a party.
Yeah. Now, I bought it outright, whereas one of my other guys up here leased it and their system, and you can still do that. But I wanted the tax credit. That was a big deal to me. Because everything I have is paid for. I have no tax credits. And this thing was perfect. It's a tax credit that comes right off my taxes. Plus, I added in the panels, added in the insulation. So the more I packed into it, the bigger, the price went up, but that's more credit I got because I needed to do it anyway. I think if I could put in wood floors, I would have added that into it as well. But
you mentioned batteries once or twice. Now that you've had your system since February, are you more or less likely to decide to add batteries in the future?
Well, yes and no. I mean, if I want to add a battery now, I could get a tax credit for it, add that onto it. But I don't know that I need it. So, but it just depends, because in the future, it could be where we go to you store energy because you want to use it during the 5 o'clock period when it's more expensive. Right now, I'm paying $13 a kilowatt hour. That's just across the board with Green Mountain Energy. So they're doing what other places do in other cities, where they do it by the time of day and how much usage you use and what you're charging. So
we've got another question. Any issues with the panel layout or arrangement that was raised by the fire department for egress, ingress distance from the edge of the roof?
Well, that's something else I learned, that, you have to have so much from the edge of the roof. So, and I laid out the panels the way I wanted, and I actually wanted a certain way, and I wanted another kind of array on the other one side, because I had south roof, and then and it's funny, I went there and watched the sun. I made all these kind of charts, and I stood and I went back to them, and I think kind of Good Faith kind of came back, and they put it all in one big array. And because I said, well, these panels, some on the side are going to go more shade. Could I put them over here? And could I raise them up? So, but we can. They put it all together. They came out with one, but there wasn't too much of a problem with that. It just you just have to change them and where some they go vertical or horizontal to make them so you keep that roof edge. And that's when I realized, I guess I see why they need that, because you got to walk around the roof. And I've also learned that it's a lot of fun to be on the roof too, So I spend a lot more time up on the roof than I did before. So.
Okay. So there's another question. Are you considering an electric vehicle in the future?
Yes. If Volvo will come out with a vehicle, yes, I will. As long as my Volvo now is running fine. I just want to keep her. So we'll just see how things go. But yes, that is a thought. And the thought too is to put maybe a panel or two on the other side over by the garage, and then that could charge up a battery where I could charge the car in the garage. But
Hmm.
one thing at a time. Now they got the panels going. I'm kind of like got to take a break for a second. So, and especially the kitchen, some other work done. But yes, I am thinking of that, and I was also thinking of putting in we have a private park. I want to be able to put in a panel to go to a battery that then could light up all the lights that be around the walkway.
Huh.
So, so I'll probably do the research on that. But yes, I have thought about doing that. It's just that I'm kind of been busy at the time to do it. Now, the thing about it is if I did that now, I could get a solar credit off of my taxes. So it's possible I could go ahead and add a battery like that and add, that system now to get that, the federal tax credit before it goes away.
Right.
So,
And back to batteries, there's another question. What special provisions might there be in the design if you added batteries? Did you make any?
Well, I paid a little bit extra for them to basically do the wiring so that they could put a battery on. What they did, I have no clue. It may have been nothing. They just charged me for it, because I'd be too stupid enough, not to go look at it.
Got a big stamp that says battery ready, right?
Yeah, right. Like one size fits all. So now I did hear today of one of the other groups talking about that if you have microinverters, it's a little more problem with the battery than the string. But that's something I might have to investigate. But the thing is, I wanted microinverters. I went to them, I said, I knew kind of what I want. I like the Panasonic panels that they were selling, and I want microinverters, and I want a critter guard. Basically, I don't need squirrels underneath chewing at me the wires for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the little things like that I added as well.
Okay.
And then I get on the roof sometime, and then I wash the panels off and so forth. But as soon as I think that those panels on the south roof have kept my bill down because the heat doesn't hit the roof, it doesn't heat the roof up as much. And I can go up on the panels and I can touch them, and they're not hot at all in the middle of the day. So it's I can't fry eggs up there like I thought I might be able to. So it's been pretty seamless. I haven't had any problem. And I wondered too about when it switches back and forth, but it's just kind of seamless. I just don't even know. It's not like the power goes off, at 6 o'clock and it comes back on as it switches over. Yeah. And during the day, sometimes it'll switch as I don't generate enough power, but it's been all pretty smooth, all the way. So we'll see, how it goes. And hopefully, and that's one reason I want my installers to stay, healthy and stay in business. They're also the electricians so that they can service any problem that comes along. So.
All right. Well, we've hit 11 o'clock, and I know there's another session at Dallas College starting at 11. So if you want to go to that.
Come visit. I'm more than happy to entertain anyone who wants to come out and visit and see, and I'll show them around, whatever. So, even when the pandemic now, we can stand far away and, be fine. So if anyone wants to come visit, I'm more than happy to just schedule and let you and show you what's going on, see, because, it's fun. I can monitor stuff from my laptop or from my iPad. And so I say maybe they'll talk about the same thing a little bit more in the next period when I come at 12. So
yeah, we'll be back at 12.
Yeah.
Thank you.